Let me take you on a trip down memory lane, to a time when we neither had to wear face masks nor were barred from social gatherings. It's the backstory to this channel. January 19, 2020. Just a few weeks before the pandemic changed our way of living around the globe, the first video on this channel was uploaded. In a way, this was life-changing for me too. Containing nothing more than film footage from TV shows and movies that I had gathered, and some cool music, my intention was to convey the look and the feel of the stories that I was about to tell in the future. It was an announcement, so to say. All following videos were born out of this trailer, which in turn was inspired by a blog that I had started in the fall of 2019. On January 30th, I uploaded Rise of the Göktürks. It was the first real video and it immediately garnered attention. It was narrated by myself. I had to use the recording app of my phone because I could not afford a professional microphone yet, being a student at all. But in time, I continued with the production of 8 more episodes, which were released also in Turkish and German, until I decided to summarize the rise of the Göktürks in one large, very long movie-like documentary. Good choice, I would say. Since January 2020, more than 100 videos have been released on this channel, Can't Stand, of which I am proud to be the founder and owner of. That being said, within the last 2 years, a lot of things have changed, mainly the quality of the videos. By now, I can truly claim that I am indeed producing actual documentaries on an audiovisual level. Nonetheless, even the older videos have gotten quite positive feedback. Since Rise of the Göktürks, Can't Stand has been subscribed to by more than 13,000 people. Incredible, really, but most of my subscribers joined within the last few months, either after watching the first Göktürk movie or a video I had made about the origins of the Ottoman Empire. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Can't Stand. Either way, I feel that now is the time to get into more personal contact with you, my supporters, including of course my Patreon backers. The thing that I love most about my channel is the fact that its subscribers are very diverse. You all come from different social and ethnic backgrounds. From Indonesia, China and Korea to India and Mongolia, all the way to Turkey, the Balkans, Germany and Great Britain. And lest we forget, we have many subscribers from the United States too. While this is still a hobby to me, I do feel like I bear responsibility on an international level now. Actually, that is quite cool. As a celebration of the recent milestones, I've suggested doing an AMA, Ask Me Anything session. You have asked me many questions and I will now try to answer them as good as possible. Here it goes. What's the story behind the channel's name? Alright, so that's an easy one. After I had handed over my master's thesis in the fall of 2019, I began asking myself, what now? I started looking for ideas, brainstorming. At first I wanted to write political books because my papers throughout the master's phase had been rather successful. But one rainy day, I met with a good friend in a cafe who asked me stuff about Turkic history. And there it dawned on me. Why not make something about history, specifically Turkic history? And so I started a blog on WordPress. When looking for a name, I remembered that the story of the Göktürks began with a boy who was saved by a she-wolf, Asena, who then fled with him to a cave in the Altai mountains. His descendants created the Asena dynasty and ruled over the Göktürk Empire. And after the fall of their realm, it is said that the Asena went into hiding in a cave in the mountains so that the Chinese could not find them. Actually, many Asena members joined the Chinese military at that time, but never mind. But I did like the association, so why not Cave of the Khan? I wanted to convey the feeling of basically going into a dark cave where you'd meet some long-bearded, white-haired old man who was full of wisdom and was about to unleash all of Turkic history upon you. But the name had to be shortened, and that's how I came up with Can't Stand, which I took over to YouTube. Which languages can you read and understand? Turkish, German and English fluently. Basic knowledge of other languages include Japanese and Korean, and on this note, please excuse my German accent. What did you study in university? That would be political science and history. I graduated in Pol Science and then obtained my master's degree a few years ago, and afterwards I wanted to start a PhD program, also in political science, and at the same university in which I had graduated. My chances were actually rather good, but the lecturer, or the professor, delayed the whole process for so long that after nearly 1 year of waiting, I quit. He did not even give me the chance to sign up for the program officially, which meant that I wasted 1 year of my life on an academic level. Well, seeing as how things are progressing on his channel, and my upcoming book being on the horizon, I pity him. Can we hope for a collaboration sometime in the future? It would be interesting to see or hear you debate historic events with another perspective, e.g. the Ottoman Wars or the Crusades. Now that's a good idea and perhaps I will, but it depends on the other party. And so far no one has messaged me yet, but I am nonetheless an avid viewer of other historical channels on YouTube. When it comes to historical maps, by the way, I cannot recommend Kayra Atakan's channel enough. The amount of work and level of detail he puts into his map animations is insane. Are Turkish people really practicing Islam, or is it just something they know and just don't really care about? And are they still practicing their own traditional ways? Oh boy, I usually try my best not to get political, but we can't always avoid that. To put it short and simple, Islam in Turkey is not the same as in many other countries in the Arab world, or in Iran for that matter. The Turks and Kurds, Circassians, the Laz people and those of Balkan descent, basically anyone living in Anatolia, are adherent to the Hanafi school of Islam. Furthermore, when the Turks settled in Anatolia after the Seljuk conquests in the High Middle Ages, they had already been members of the Islamic community. But with a catch. They actually left a lot of their old pre-Islamic traditions intact. A lot of these traditions can be seen in the Tengrism video, which I had uploaded on New Year, and they were adhered to for thousands of years, and the conversion of the Oghuz Turks to Islam on a state level and their subsequent settlement in Anatolia took approximately only 300 years. Therefore, they did not simply give up their ancestral rites and rituals and instead combined them with the pillars of Islam. For example, the dervishes seem familiar to the Turks. They saw them in all of their dancing glory and were reminded of their own shamans who, being in trance, tried to make contact between their own world and Tengri. Also, many Alevi Turks claim to conserve the old traditions of their Turkish ancestors, which might be something that not all people in Turkey are happy about. On a political level, things might seem totally different from what I have just explained, but never mind the politics. Seriously. But this does not only apply to Anatolian Turks. Actually, the Turkic peoples of Central Asia, then the Azerbaijanis, the Gagauz in Moldavia, the Tatars on Crimea and Russia, and the Yakuts in Siberia have also not forgotten their roots and syncretized their old beliefs with the new religion of Islam. Perhaps they did give some more effort to retaining the old Turkic culture than the Turks of Anatolia did. If you could change something in Turkic history, like a different ally, focus on another battlefield, etc., what would you change? Now that is a question that I could think about for days. Turkic history is so long and rich that it would be difficult to give a definitive answer without including at least one or two runner-ups. But due to the focus on Göktürk history and Anatolian history, I'm gonna narrow it down to these two time periods. Firstly, in 1473, the Battle of Otlukbeli near Erzincan. It is a massive land battle between the Ottomans in the west and the Akkoyunlu in the eastern parts of Anatolia. While both states were ruled by dynasties who had rather different views of how their primary culture should look like in the future, they were both of Turkic origin. This was more visible with the Akkoyunlu, it seems. Then again, the Ottomans claimed descent from the Kaya tribe and the Akkoyunlu from the Bayandur tribe. And in this time period, both families ruled over the two most important states in the Middle East, notwithstanding of course the Mamluk Sultanate. Both of their rulers, Mehmed the Conqueror and Uzun Hasan, had great aspirations, and they had enemies left and right. But instead of fighting against each other in this battle, which caused many casualties, they could have joined forces. Because after the battle, the victorious Mehmed never attacked the Akkoyunlu Empire again, and Uzun Hasan did not even have to cede any territory to the Ottomans. Why? Was there a moment of mutual agreement between these two? Perhaps. It is just a theory of mine, but I do find this interesting. Now let us imagine that instead of this negative peace which prevailed for another 30 years, the Ottomans and Akkoyunlu actually joined forces. What would happen if they had become allies? They could have both attacked the Mamluks at a time where Selim, the actual conqueror of the Mamluks, was just a child, and while the Ottomans would take care of the European states in the west, the Akkoyunlu could have retaken the ancient Oghuz lands from the Timurid rulers in the east. Secondly, if I had a time machine, I would definitely go back in time to the year 572. Shortly after Taspar became Khagan of the Göktürk Khaganate, he would indirectly take part in the Chinese war between the northern Zhou, his old allies, and the northern Qi, his old foes. Because the Zhou nearly annihilated the Qi, Taspar acted out of a balance of power train of thought and supported the Qi against the Zhou. As we all know, his plans failed, and in the end, he even captured his own key ally, Gao Shaoyi, on behalf of the Zhou. Later, at the time of Taspar's death, the Zhou was then transformed into the Sui dynasty, which brought chaos among the Göktürks. Perhaps by taking a different route, the Turks could have avoided the dilemma that was brought upon them by espionage, sabotage, and of course the sowing of discontent by the Sui Empire. If I were Taspar, I would have directly marched into the Zhou territory while they were preoccupied fighting Gao Shaoyi's resistance army. Seeing as how both wealthy and powerful the Göktürks had become, surely the Zhou would have had to submit one way or another to Taspar. In the next step, I would have declined the key refugees' requests for introducing Buddhism to the Turks. There was seriously nothing to gain by making it a state religion, although Taspar did not even go that far and was unsuccessful in trying to convince his fellow Turks into becoming Buddhists. And finally, can you recommend us books related to the things you talk about in your videos? Indeed, I'd not recommend books, but rather the authors themselves. Anything, and I really mean anything, written by Peter B. Golden, Ahmet Taşeril, and Faruk Sümer. Golden's and Sümer's books are essential for understanding pre-Anatolian and Oghuz-Turk history, respectively. Regarding primary sources, I'd recommend checking out my Google document, which I had created specifically for the Göktürk documentary in August. The link is in the description. There, you will also find many of the important primary sources which have been translated from Chinese, Korean, Tibetan, Persian, and Old Greek into English. They are hard to get though. And that's it for today. Thank you everyone who has subscribed to this channel and to anyone who regularly comments on my videos. I really appreciate your support. Now feel free to ask further questions, we will have them answered when this channel hits the next milestone of 20,000 subscribers.